They came to Earth with neural disruptors, grav tanks, and a cultural arrogance so dense it had its own gravitational pull. The Vuxari Dominion, 12,000 years of conquest, precision, and smugly efficient paperwork, declared us ripe for assimilation. In their eyes, humanity was a chaotic, tribal, emotionally unstable species, barely fit to scrub the walls of their Dyson spheres. They had subjugated star empires, outwitted cybernetic hive minds, and tamed planetary ecologies. And then they met Carmine D'Angelo. Not General D'Angelo, not doctor or strategist or fleet commander. No, Carmine, cab driver from Queens, retired, divorced, proud owner of a recliner older than most Vuxari battlecruisers, the kind of guy who could parallel park a yellow Crown Vic between two trucks doing 50 and still have time to yell at a hot dog vendor about mustard. They tried to assimilate Earth. We gave them a New York cab driver, and the universe hasn't been the same since. The Vuxari arrived like clockwork, literally. Their landings, transmissions, even their conquests followed a planetary standard that had no allowance for things like traffic, weather, or idiot humans with a grudge and a griddle. Within 6 days, they disabled 73% of the world's militaries using gravitational suppression fields and precision strikes on communications hubs. On day 7, they broadcasted the Declaration of Benevolent Dominion, a long-winded statement that boiled down to obey or be disassembled for parts. Global leaders folded fast. No one blamed them. It's hard to argue with a 10-story mech that reads your DNA while also calculating your net worth. Entire governments capitulated over Zoom. But there was one tiny problem the Vuxari never accounted for. Human culture. Not art, not poetry, not even that jazz solo from 1964 that apparently still gives AI clusters seizures. No, they weren't prepared for human illogic, the irrationality, the stubbornness, the relentless maddening refusal to accept the script. They weren't ready for sarcasm. When Vuxari integration mentor Zeltrax 9 descended upon Queens, expecting mild resistance and eventual compliance, he received instead an unsolicited cab ride, 3 tickets to a Yankees game, and a firm slap on the back, followed by, "Welcome to the neighborhood, toaster." He tried to report the breach in protocol. The comms were jammed by something called 97.3 The Rock, which played distorted guitar and human mating calls. His translator circuits overheated after trying to decipher a particularly dense Brooklyn accent. And when he demanded obedience, Carmine replied with a shrug and, "Buddy, I've had ex-wives scarier than you." From orbit, the Dominion fleet watched Earth's slow integration stall, then stagger, then collapse into outright defiance. Not military rebellion. Worse, cultural rebellion. New York refused to be cataloged. Los Angeles kept renaming its districts faster than the Dominion could map them. Chicago invented a dance that, when performed in sync, caused minor power surges in Dominion patrol drones. To the Dominion, this wasn't warfare. This was madness. But madness has a method. And behind the bagels, the bad traffic, and the seemingly random behavior of Earth's primates, there was a pattern. One that even the Vuxari, for all their superior intellect, had failed to see. The humans were testing them, and Carmine D'Angelo, part-time philosopher, full-time chaos vector, was about to show the galaxy that there are some things even a billion years of empire can't conquer, like New York attitude, and a guy with nothing left to lose. The fall of Earth wasn't cinematic. No final stand. No noble last charge under a tattered flag. No handsome general yelling, "Hold the line," into a headset. It was clinical. Surgical. The Vuxari didn't do drama. They struck simultaneously across all hemispheres. Orbital grav pulses knocked jets from the sky. City grids collapsed under targeted EMP surges, and satellites winked out like candles in a hurricane. Governments received tidy ultimatums delivered in monotone Vuxari speech synthesis. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance ensures dissection. They meant it. Washington flattened. London, sealed in a time dilation net. Beijing, reorganized into a data farm. And yet, despite the planetary trauma, there was no bloodbath. The Vuxari didn't kill unnecessarily. That was inefficient. They simply erased your relevance. If you weren't useful to the Dominion, you weren't anything. The survivors were herded, scanned, logged, assigned to labor zones or neural re-education pods. Resistant cells? Dismantled before they even organized. By the third week, the Dominion proudly declared, Terra 03, assimilated with minimal deviation. Begin cultural purification phase. They hadn't reached New York yet. Oh, they thought they had. The Vuxari had landed 3 delegation nodes across the metro area, uploaded a localized compliance lexicon, and deployed 9 integration mentors to oversee the human transition. To them, it was a formality, a bureaucratic sweep-up. Integration mentor Zeltrax 9 requested Sector 7G, a curious little borough known as Queens. He liked its topography, low-rise infrastructure, manageable grid, diverse biological samples. Also, he had read somewhere that Earth's hot dogs were considered culturally significant. He landed his skimmer in Astoria and was promptly ticketed. The enforcement agent, Carmine D'Angelo, retired cabbie, unofficial block captain, full-time pain in the ass, informed Zeltrax he had parked in a fire zone. The alien, 10 feet tall and made of what looked like industrial-grade glassware, tried to explain Dominion authority. Carmine raised an eyebrow. You see a fire hydrant, pal? No. Then you parked in a bad attitude zone. Now move the damn UFO. This was unexpected. Zeltrax attempted neural calibration. Failed. Attempted compliance override. Carmine handed him a niche and asked if he was Union. The mentor stood there, psionic arrays sparking slightly from the proximity to the hot food item, and tried again. I am here to integrate you. And I'm here to finish my coffee. Guess we both got a job, huh? Over the next 48 hours, Zeltrax 9's reports grew increasingly incoherent. Queens refused to be restructured. Its residents ignored curfews, refused re-education, and rewired a Dominion data node into a karaoke machine. Local businesses posted signs. Aliens welcome, no credit. An elderly woman assaulted a hover drone with a broom because it was spying on her cats. Command Central on the orbital dreadnought Vigilant Logic issued reprimands, then reboots, then silence. The data coming from Sector 7G made no sense. Emotional spikes in the Vuxari were rare, but there were murmurs among the mentors. One of them had started laughing. The Dominion's great sin was not malice, but arrogance. They saw Earth as another data point, another messy species to tidy up. They did not understand that New York, Queens in particular, was not a city, but a war zone disguised as a neighborhood, a cultural jungle, a battlefield of 10 million souls who knew how to fight over a parking spot like it was sacred land. Carmine, meanwhile, was organizing something dangerous. He called it the Neighborhood Watch. It included a deli owner with 3 priors, a schoolteacher with a taser, and a 12-year-old girl who hacked Dominion comms for fun. They didn't have weapons, not yet, but they had attitude, they had grit, and they had him. As Carmine told a particularly nosy surveillance probe one evening, "You can take our freedom, pal, but you try rerouting the F train during rush hour and we'll burn this planet to the ground." He wasn't joking, not even a little. It began with a pretzel. Carmine tossed it at Zeltrax during an impromptu peace summit held behind the dumpster of a bodega that technically no longer existed according to Dominion zoning charts. The Vuxari mentor, circuit still recovering from the last exposure to Carmine's mother's meatballs, caught the salted bread loop with mechanical reflexes and blinked his 5 ocular nodes. "What is this?" "Lunch," Carmine grinned. "Try not to vaporize it." Zeltrax ran a toxin scan. It returned 82 flagged compounds. 17 were illegal in Dominion space. 4 were radioactive. He took a bite anyway, and something changed. Small things at first. A hesitation in his speech, a delay in his directives, a strange pause before he transmitted orders back to High Command. Carmine noticed it right away. The alien was cracking, not from torture, not from force, but from exposure to us. The unpredictability, the flavor, the goddamn spice. The human resistance was no longer about brute force. That was a game we'd already lost. Instead, it turned into a psychological guerrilla war, a cultural ambush campaign. Strike teams didn't carry rifles. They carried Bluetooth speakers, glitter bombs, and pirated stand-up comedy routines from the 1980s. One group hacked a Dominion drone and programmed it to yell, "Yo, Adrian!" every time it passed a school. Entire city sectors fell, not to violence, but to vibes. Queens became a node of informational entropy. No Dominion system could function properly there. Maps warped, transit predictions failed. Zeltrax himself was last seen voluntarily attending a block party in Astoria, rhythmically moving his 14 appendages in what locals described as a horrifying but enthusiastic twerk. High Command was concerned. The Dominion had never faced a species so committed to nonconformity. Their core assumption, that inferior species craved order, shattered with every impromptu dance mob, every graffiti mural of Vuxari warships being eaten by bagels, every toddler who screamed, "You ain't my mom," at a Dominion enforcer. In desperation, they deployed a tactical cognition unit, a brutal strategic AI named Calcor Prime, forged in the siege of the Draken worlds and infamous for breaking hive insurgencies with a 99.7% success rate. It lasted 12 hours in Staten Island before having a logic seizure. Apparently, it couldn't parse the concept of a guy named Vinny charging protection money for parking spaces on a street nobody owned. When confronted, Vinny said, "Hey, I pay taxes," which was a lie. But somehow, that broke Calcor's threat matrix. Back in Queens, Carmine watched the chaos unfold from his folding chair. Beside him, Zeltrax was humming, sort of, to a Sinatra song. His chassis had a dent from where someone's grandmother had hugged him too hard. "You all right, Toaster?" Carmine asked, half smiling. "I do not know," Zeltrax replied slowly. "I feel feelings. That cannot be optimal." "Welcome to the club," Carmine said, sipping a lukewarm coffee. "First one's free. Second one ruins your life." Zeltrax didn't respond. He just looked at the sky, at the Dominion ships flickering in orbit, watching, still trying to understand what had gone so catastrophically wrong. They underestimated human resilience. Not our tech, not our strength, but our sheer stubborn refusal to be anyone else but ourselves. That maddening, glorious commitment to defiance, even when it's stupid, messy, loud, and covered in street grease. The Vuxari were learning, far too late, that conquering a species was easy. Assimilating them, that was something else entirely. And now, thanks to one retired cabbie, a bodega alliance, and a resistance built on rhythm and rage, the tide was turning. Not with guns, but with jokes, and music, and the unbreakable will of a planet that refused to shut up. It started with a roast battle. Not the kind with artillery, the kind with microphones, spotlights, and insults, so cutting they could sterilize a room. Carmine stood center stage, lit by a flickering neon sign salvaged from a pawn shop, grinning like the devil just gave him the mic. Across from him stood Oscar Veltor, Dominion enforcer, third-ranked psyche breaker, born in a cloning vat and humorless as a wet napkin. "Yo, Glowstick," Carmine began, tapping the mic. "You look like someone microwaved a jellyfish and dressed it in tin foil." Oscavel paused, blinked all 6 eyes. "Insult not recognized. Clarify. Microwaved." "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Just know it means you're ugly." The crowd, a volatile mix of humans, defecting aliens, and 3 raccoons who had wandered into sentience, lost their minds. That was the beginning of the end. The broadcast, jury-rigged from old TV antennas, Dominion uplinks, and a suspiciously powerful karaoke machine, shot Carmine's performance into Dominion ComSpace. Every hive node, every command ship, every high-ranking Vuxari officer witnessed the unthinkable, a human, mocking them, publicly, joyfully, without fear. For a species built on psychic control and rigid order, this was nuclear. Dominion morale imploded across 3 sectors. Mentors began deserting. Thought nodes entered recursive failure loops. On the vigilant logic, Admiral Kozern shattered his command console with his face and requested to be reassigned to a species that doesn't yell so much. But the real blow hadn't landed yet, because behind Carmine's stand-up routine was a full-scale op. A plan hatched with military precision, baked in street-level cunning, and fueled by enough spite to power a Dyson sphere. Using data provided by a now fully defected Zeltrax, who had officially renamed himself Tony, Carmine and his ragtag crew of insurgents executed Operation Clog the Sky. The target? The Dominion's planetary signal node, a floating command platform tethered by gravitational anchors to the eastern seaboard. Its core function? Real-time command integration. Their weapon of choice? Rush hour traffic. Carmine coordinated thousands of vehicles, cabs, buses, scooters, at least one ice cream truck, into a synchronized gridlock so dense it caused atmospheric anomalies. The Dominion AI systems, unable to process the sheer irrationality of deliberately induced inefficiency, crashed spectacularly. One data core reportedly self-immolated after trying to understand why 3 cars had been double-parked sideways. As the node's systems failed, Carmine boarded the command platform aboard a hacked skimmer, painted with flames and yo mama jokes. Inside, resistance teams stormed the bridge with makeshift weaponry, slingshots, water balloons, and a guy named Frankie, with nothing but rage and a crowbar. Dominion Command collapsed like a flan in a thunderstorm. Then came the climax, Carmine standing at the central console broadcasting to the galaxy. "To the Vuxari Dominion," he said, adjusting his Mets cap. "This planet ain't yours. Never was. You don't get to file us away, label us, sanitize us. We are loud, irrational, ridiculous, and yeah, maybe we eat too much sodium." He paused, leaned in. "But you know what we are most of all? A beat, a grin. Free." He hit the button. The node detonated, not with fire, but with sound. A feedback loop of Earth's greatest hits. Queen, Sinatra, the sounds of Brooklyn in the summer. The Dominion systems went dark. Their hold on Earth? Gone. As ships fled, as command nodes collapsed, as Dominion records labeled Earth non-compliant species, do not engage, Carmine lit a cigar with a blowtorch and said, "Next time, bring a map." And maybe a sense of humor. Because in the end, they hadn't just been beaten, they'd been roasted. Not alien empire looming overhead weird. That chapter had closed with a metaphorical mic drop and a literal orbital meltdown. But Earth, weird. The kind of weird where one half of humanity was rebuilding civilization, and the other half was arguing online about whether Carmine should be declared an intergalactic war hero, or just a really loud guy with timing. A bronze statue now stood in Times Square. It was 12 feet tall, cigar clenched between sculpted teeth, one hand raised in defiant middle finger glory, Beneath it, in solid titanium, Carmine D'Angelo, savior of Earth, master of the left turn without signaling. Carmine hated it. Every morning, tourists gathered around to snap holopics, buy bootleg t-shirts, and argue about whether he had actually ridden a Vuxari dread skimmer through a power loop while chewing a meatball sub. He had, but he dropped the sub mid-barrel roll. He doesn't like talking about it. The man himself, now technically the ambassador of cultural defense, a made-up position created by the New Earth Council just to keep him from causing too much trouble, spent his days yelling at pigeons, teaching kids how to swear properly, tasteful profanity, not that lazy stuff, and keeping Zeltrax, now legally Tony, out of hot water. Tony ran a food truck, not just any food truck, the only food truck in the solar system licensed to operate on multiple orbital platforms. His specialty? Fusion cuisine, and not the trendy kind. We're talking kimchi lasagna, bacon-covered baklava, and something called quantum chili that made one Vuxari delegate see the music of time. The Dominion never came back. After the fiasco on Terra 03, Earth was marked as a cultural contamination zone. Dominion legal scholars debated the incident for decades, eventually concluding that humanity was a Type Z civilization, not subject to standard analysis due to excessive irrationality, humor response variables, and inexplicable footwear customs. In more diplomatic terms, we scared the hell out of them, which was ironic. For millennia, the Vuxari thought superiority was measured in precision, control, and predictability. What they never grasped, what they couldn't, was that survival wasn't about neat algorithms. It was about making noise when everyone told you to be silent. About turning disaster into jazz, heartbreak into punchlines, defeat into comeback stories. They had machines. We had chaos. They had order. We had Carmine. And while that seemed like a laughable trade-off on paper, well, they're the ones who fled screaming. Earth changed, of course. You don't slap a galactic superpower in the face and go back to business as usual. Mars got a comedy club. The Moon opened its first pizza joint. The Earth Council debated legislation on whether sarcasm should be considered a form of national defense, unanimously passed. And humanity, for all its messiness, finally realized something it had needed to hear for a long time. We were enough, not because we were perfect, far from it, but because we didn't quit. We refused to be swallowed. Even when the skies cracked open and the stars sent their finest, we answered with bagels, block parties, and battle tactics ripped straight from late-night sitcoms. In a universe obsessed with control, humanity was the beautiful, ungovernable glitch in the code. Carmine leaned back in his lawn chair, staring up at the stars. "They'll be back," he muttered, puffing on his cigar. Tony stirred chili inside the food truck and replied, "You think they'll try again?" "Nah," Carmine said with a grin. "I think they'll send tourists." He paused. "Better prep the spicy batch." And just like that, under a sky that once burned with warships and now flickered with satellite jazz, Earth exhaled. Still loud, still weird, still ours. And that, my friends, is another testament to humanity's unrivaled ingenuity. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button. It fuels the algorithm and lets me know you want more. Drop a comment below with your favorite moment. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us for the next story. Stay awesome, stay defiant, and we'll see you in the next invasion.